early in the day to finish close to even after investors found deals among the red numbers. The Dow finished off 22.5, but at one point it was down nearly 600 points. The Nasdaq gained 29.5, and the S&P 500 was up 2.25. More news at onenewsnow.com. For American Family News, I'm Steve Jordahl.
I love AFR. You say it's on the radio too?
Here at American Family Radio, we know that many people find their audio entertainment in other places than the radio. So our programming is available with the AFR app on Apple and Android devices, through Amazon Alexa, and now available on Roku.
I just love the podcasts.
That too. American Family Radio, streaming or podcast, now available wherever you are. And we're on the radio.
Darkness is not an affirmative force. It simply reoccupies the space vacated by the light.
This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
It should be uncomfortable for a believer to live as a hypocrite.
Delivering people out of the bondage of mainstream media
and the philosophies of this world.
God has called you and me to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment. Let's not miss our moment.
And now, the Hamilton Corner.
Good evening. Welcome to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio. We have the 2/3 full J squared contingent. I guess J squared is just 2 components, not a third. I did my math together. But we have Mr. Jeff Reed on my left, Mr. Jason Tross on my right. Marty is not in today, so we're one musketeer down. I'm your host, Abraham Hamilton III, and I'm so grateful that you have joined me on the program today. It's a lot of craziness going on in our country. I mean, it's been going on for quite some time. It's not new to today, but I'm going to jump in to some of it and as the program goes forward. But I'm going to begin in Matthew chapter 5. But before I get to Matthew, I just want to remind you that ground zero of your service to the Lord begins right in your home. Please, please, please don't allow the foolishness that is going on outside of your home begin to dictate how, or should I say, the temperature of your home. You know, because people are going berserk all around the country and all around the world, quite frankly. Let's not allow that to penetrate what goes on inside of our homes. You know, the picture that I get is, if you remember, and I know this is the purpose of this in Scripture is much greater than what I'm about to describe. But if you remember when Jesus was on the boat and there was a great storm raging outside and the disciples were panicking and Jesus was asleep. Remember that? And they came and awakened Jesus, saying, "Master, don't you care that we all will perish?" And the storms were raging outside of the boat, but Jesus' communication to them was like, "Man, calm down. Don't you know who's in this boat with you? You see me sleeping. Should give you an idea how you should be responding to this. Because have you forgotten? I made the winds and the waves." You know, there is this storm. The storm is raging externally, but the external rage does not give license for the rage to become internal for us. Similarly, the things that are going on outside, now we need to be aware of what's happening around us, absolutely. But don't allow the chaos that is outside begin to cause chaos inside. That is what I'm saying. You got me? Okay. So as you make that move from part-time work to full-time work, remind everybody in your boat, man, Jesus is in this boat. Jesus is in this boat. And so because Jesus is in the boat with us, we don't have to live, act, or respond as if he's not. All right. Matthew chapter 5. This is kind of related even. Verses 7 through 12 is what I'm going to read. This is a small portion of the Beatitudes. And of course, with everything, I encourage you to go back at your convenience and read the entire Sermon on the Mount. This is a portion of that. It's been frequently described as the longest recorded sermon in the Scripture that Jesus is recorded as having preached. I'm going to read these 5 verses, and I'm going to focus in on one particular portion. All right, here we go. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of peace. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Now, what I primarily want to focus on, and this is something I've hit on before, but it's important, I think, especially in the time where we are today. In verse 9, where it says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. And I've described in the past, notice that Jesus doesn't say, blessed are the peacekeepers. You know, I've consistently made a distinction between peacemakers and peacekeepers. Because a peacekeeper, and every time I think about a peacekeeper, I think about the UN peacekeeping force. You know, the blue helmets that sometimes they are in war zones, but they aren't engaged. They're just peacekeepers, you know. And actually, no, let me go back. The UN peacekeeping force normally comes in after, after the fighting is already over with. A peacekeeper is one who maintains a modicum of peace that they have inherited, right? So there's no waves rolling, and so I just want to make it to ensure that no waves roll going forward. But a peacemaker is one who makes or forges peace out of chaos. Jesus is saying, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. It really gives us a more full understanding of the responsibility we have as Christ followers, because the Lord literally calls us to be a part of making peace. A peacemaker is one who is able to intercede between estranged parties, one who is able to enter into a chaotic circumstance or a chaotic situation and to forge peace from the pre-existent chaos. That's our call. Now, when you recognize that that's our call, and you connect that to what I was saying earlier about the storms raging externally, not raging internally, we do not have the luxury to become ensnared by what Paul describes as civilian affairs. With the things that are bustling, that are going on around us, our mandate is to be peacemakers. Being a peacemaker often requires us to be willing to stand up and speak when nobody else wants to speak. Being a peacemaker requires Christ followers when dialogue surrounding us takes a turn away from where we know it should be, especially as it pertains to matters of eternity, that we speak up. I've said in a couple episodes back that there really is no such thing as a trendy Christian. We don't follow crowds. We are not temperature takers, thermometers. We're thermostats. At least that's what we're called to be. That is what the Lord's desire for us is. When I think about, and this is probably, not probably, this is why we need to really revisit church history to get a full-throated understanding of what our ancestors in the faith really were facing. You know, the whole idea of Christianity being the dominant majority is the exception as opposed to the rule historically. You know, when you think about the history of the Christian church around the world, Christianity was always swimming upstream. You think about Christianity around the world today, it's still swimming upstream. Being peacemakers often will come with people lying on you. But look what Jesus said. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you. It kind of brings to mind, if you're not being reviled, if you're not facing some opposition, I wonder if you're even in the game. I wonder if you're in the game. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier today, reminiscing on the conversation I had a long time ago with a friend of mine who wanted to be a Christian rapper. And I told him, I said, man, listen, can I just be real with you? If you desire to remain faithful to Christ, your music will never be as big as a mainstream artist. You know why? Because Jesus said, narrow is the way unto salvation. Jesus said, is a servant above his master? They hated me. So if you are a follower of Jesus Christ and everybody in the world loves you, you should begin to wonder what's going on here. Man, I don't have resistance anywhere. Folks, this is what we signed up for. But the Lord has given us a glorious perch, a glorious vantage point called eternity, that we get to look at what is happening from the eternal perspective. One of the things that I'm endeavoring to train my children in concerning Christianity is understanding that this is a faith that's worth giving your life for. This is a faith that is worth giving your life for. So a little social media friction, that's nothing, man. What? I got a few people talking reckless, keyboard warriors. Come on, man. That's not gonna deter me. What? You are a digital gladiator? Come on. That's not gonna deter me. But the Lord said, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are you. Look what he said. When they persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Now, here's the key there. They're uttering all kinds of evil against you falsely. Don't come around here talking about you being persecuted when people telling the truth about you. Oh, man, that brother, that sister talk all of this Jesus jazz, and they lie. They lie all day long. I mean, I know he talking about he's a worshiper, but he's a chief among the adulterers. If that's true, don't come talking about this persecution, because that's not persecution. Jesus said, blessed are you when they utter all manner of evil about you falsely on my account. Now, they're uttering the evil falsely. Jesus said, you're blessed for that. That doesn't seem to fit in with the way we navigate things today. But it's incumbent upon us to maintain our eternal view, to maintain our eternal perch. Jesus even goes further and said, rejoice and be glad. What? Lord, be glad? Be glad because I don't have a blue check mark on Twitter? Man, who cares about a blue check mark? Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. Man, you know what all of this touch me, tease me, gotta please me preaching? People have lost sight of eternity. When was the last time you heard somebody preach about heaven? You know, we got folks trying to live their best life now. I'm going to say it like my man Jay Charles. My best life is the next life. Now, if you tweet that, you make sure you put Jay Charles on it, because that comes from Mr. Charles. My best life is the next life. Man, this is a vapor. This is a blink. This is a flash in the pan. What's 100 years, 70 years, 80 years, 120 years in comparison to eternity? Man, let's make the time we have on this side of eternity count. Blessed are the peacemakers. A peacemaker, I get the picture of Aaron following Moses' instruction in Numbers chapter 7 when the plague had broken out. And Moses told Aaron, grab your censer, because the plague has broken out. And the Bible records Aaron rushing into the fray with his censer, which was a symbol representing prayer and praise. And Aaron rushes into the fray, and the Bible says, and where Aaron stood, he divided the living from the dead. And the plague was stopped. The plague ceased. Family of God, that's our call. That's our call. Blessed are the peacemakers. Don't allow this stuff that's going on outside of you back you off, cause you to dumb down. Remember the song we learned as children? This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Man, let that light shine. Are we gonna hide it under a bushel? No. I'm gonna let it shine. Don't put that light under a bushel. Let that thing shine, man. And if we happen to face persecution on Christ's account, guess what he says about us? Blessed are you. Man, I get great strength, great encouragement, great hope by reading about our ancestors in the faith, reading about the Athanasius and Polycarp and Stephen and Peter after he was restored, and James, and reading about these men of God. Man, stand firmly on the rock that is higher than we are, because we are blessed if men revile us for Christ's sake.
Today we honor some heroes. Hi, I'm Matt Staver with Freedom's Call. August 7th is Purple Heart Day. It commemorates the oldest military honor in America and the men and women who have received it. The badge was created by George Washington in 1782. He proclaimed it was to be presented to soldiers for any singular meritorious action. But until Washington's 200th birthday, the Purple Heart was just a footnote in the history books. Later in 1932, General Douglas MacArthur and the War Department created the Order of the Purple Heart. The medal is inscribed with a bust of George Washington and his coat of arms, and it's now one of the most distinctive military decorations. It's given to soldiers wounded or killed while serving our country. Take some time today to commemorate the men and women who have sacrificed for our freedom, and commit today to make a difference for freedom in America. Stay informed at Liberty Counsel's website, lc.org.
Have you been looking for a way to serve others? Are you able to serve in a ministry without being paid? You and Friendships might be the perfect match. Friendships is currently taking applications for volunteers providing aid to disaster victims, refugees, and the impoverished, both here at home and around the world. Get more information at friendships.org or by calling 337-433-5022.
Hey, Target. You thought we were done? Did you think we would give up? Well, of course not. We still stand strong with our belief that men do not belong in the women's restrooms or changing areas. It's absurd. We should not have to walk in your restrooms with the fear of someone of the opposite sex walking in on us. Together, we will stop this open door policy. Help us by signing the pledge to boycott Target at afa.net.
Brian Fisher here with today's Life and Liberty Minute. Tom Messina has run a 24-hour diner for 20 years in Denver and was counting on the sale of the diner to finance his retirement. He's already been offered $4.8 million for it. But the regressive busybodies in Denver could care less about his constitutional right to property and the pursuit of happiness. No, the diner was built in 1967 and is an example of something called Gucci architecture. I've never heard of it either, that regressives insist must be preserved. So they're designating his restaurant as a historic landmark, which means he can't sell it for anywhere near what it's worth. This is theft, and theft under color of law is still theft. So Denver broke the Ten Commandments, violated the Constitution, and stole the guy's retirement all on the same day. Wonder what tomorrow holds.
Catch Brian Fisher on Focal Point, weekday afternoons at 105 Central on American Family Radio.
Shining light into the darkness. This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner here at American Family Radio. I'm your host, Abraham Hamilton III. I'm going to give you a taste of just how insane things have become in the United States of America. So if you haven't heard about this yet, Representative Joaquin Castro, who is a congressman from the San Antonio, Texas area, he's also the chairman of his twin brother Julian Castro's presidential campaign. Now, let's be honest. Julian probably is not going to make it to the next debate. But Julian Castro is the former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under President Obama. These twin brothers went to Harvard Law School, and they are the sons of their mother, who was a regressive activist in San Antonio who worked for La Raza, which, if you don't know, means the race in Spanish. Nothing partiality driven there. But Joaquin Castro, this is this is a huge line crossing. Joaquin Castro, remember, the chairman of a presidential campaign, made a tweet following the tragic shootings in Ohio and in El Paso, Texas, and before that in California, where he said this, quote, "Sad to see so many San Antonians as 2019 maximum donors to Donald Trump." Then he names two people. Went on to say, quote, "Their contributions are fueling a campaign of hate that labels Hispanic immigrants as invaders," end quote. He then posted an infographic that included the names and occupations of 44 residents of San Antonio. These are his constituents. But listen to me. Following this shooting, which, although the media wouldn't want you to know about this, they want to focus all the attention on the shooter in El Paso, who, as I told you, as one of the callers suggested, I referred to it as a purported declaration of intent in a document that, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if he posted it on social media or not, the shooter in El Paso, because I've heard some reports that the document was floating around on the website for a significant period of time before the shooting ever took place. And I know Sandy Rios, host on American Family Radio, who hosts Sandy Rios in the morning, she has argued, and I think her argument is very sound. She's argued that there's no way this verbiage, as documented as written in this document, is the product of this young shooter. No way. The type of left-wing causes that are articulated there, combined with things that are commonly referred to as right-wing political cause, it just doesn't jive. I think she has a good point. But I shared with you that the media has focused on attributing what they believe is rhetoric that's parallel to President Trump's rhetoric. They completely ignored, I would say, at least a quarter of it, which is nothing other than radical environmentalism. I mean, I read the portions of that for you here on the air. But the media focused all their attention in El Paso with good reason. Why? Because the shooter in Ohio, we now have confirmed evidence that this dude was an Antifa member. You know, that same Antifa that Don Lemon and MSNBC and ABC and all these other networks were saying that Antifa is just a peaceful organization. This seems like the first Antifa mass shooter, who's also a self-described leftist and Satanist who is a supporter of Elizabeth Warren. They completely ignore him. But following these shootings, Joaquin Castro posts the names and occupations of 44 residents in San Antonio. In this climate, folks, we crossed the line. We've crossed the line. Now I'm going to ask you this question rhetorically. And this will help crystallize why I'm saying we've crossed the line. Why do you think Joaquin Castro posted those people's names and jobs on social media? What do you think he sought to accomplish? What do you think the results would be from him making that information public? And if anybody ever had a question before about what tyranny looks like, you now have a public display. Abraham, tyranny? Yes. Can I tell you why Congressman Castro did that? And this is a congressman, folks. When you run for office, you put yourself in the public spotlight. Your job is to be criticized by your constituents. But you don't get the opportunity to tyrannize and to vilify your constituents because they do something politically that you don't like. When you have a government official castigating his citizens, the people he's supposed to represent, but in this instance that he's lording over, what do you have happening there? I don't think Joaquin Castro is Cuban, but he sure is acting like another Castro that I can remember. Because when you have residents in the district you represent and who aren't doing things you want them to do, then you take action to change their political behavior. What do you call that? Tyrannical dictatorship. Joaquin Castro is hoping that by exposing these Trump supporters, that he will cause their conduct to change in the future. And he's also wanting to send a shot across the bow that will similarly intimidate other potential Trump supporters by saying, hey, by his actions, he's saying, if you dare financially support President Trump, you too can be exposed on Twitter later. Folks, that is a line that we should have never crossed, because Joaquin Castro is literally inviting every yahoo from across the country to place their focus on these American citizens. Now, you know the talker snake media likes to do this thing with one person does something that happens to be a member of a political party. They stick microphones in every member of that same political party, asking them to disavow or to condemn actions or statements. Every media outlet in this country should be sticking a microphone in the mouth, in the nose of every elected official, especially Democrats, and calling on them to condemn this action. Because in the United States of America, we're supposed to have something called the First Amendment. This is an action, and right on cue, you know, it was one of the first ones to come and support what Joaquin Castro did? Rashida Tlaib. You know, the self-described socialist from Michigan. Folks, this is evil. This is evil. Can you imagine? Just imagine. Let's say Ted Cruz posted online. It saddens me to see how many Texans are giving money to Barack Obama at the height of the Tea Party movement. Can you imagine what the reaction would have been? Folks, this is a despicable action. His entire goal was to shame the rest of the American populace away from President Trump. And you know, part of the social shaming, and it was one thing when it was social and it was media driven, but now you have government officials doing it. Part of it is working on the social side. That's why the polls were so messed up in 2016. You had millions of Americans who were supporting Donald Trump, but they didn't want to tell anybody publicly. Now everybody's coming out of the closet with everything else and supporting everybody else they want to support. But why people don't want us to be able to be public about their support for President Trump? Don't even get me started on the New York Times crawfishing on their publication of a headline that said President Trump condemns racism and white supremacy. And then regressive public officials and popular media people or whatever, they rebuked the New York Times, and so they changed their headline. Wow. Well, much to Joaquin Castro's dismay, there were two people who he outed who supported President Trump. They were like, so, I don't care. One of them, I'm going to take them one at a time. One of them first is Wayne Harwell. Wayne Harwell said, quote, I was on a list of people that gave to Castro. Uh-oh. You see, it never entered into Joaquin Castro's mind that San Antonians were independent thinkers who, even if they support President Trump in the presidential race, that some of them might have supported him in the past. Wayne Harwell was one of those people. Wayne Harwell said, quote, I was on a list of people that gave to Castro. And if he dislikes me enough that he wants to put my name out there against Trump, I'm not going to give money to him. Obviously, Castro feels pretty strongly against me. I'm pretty independent, but I support Trump. See, this is the key touchstone of the regressive mind. Folks, Trump derangement syndrome is real. Joaquin Castro did not fathom in his heart of hearts that people who had supported President Trump might have supported him in the past. Wayne Harwell owns his own company in San Antonio. He said, man, I'm an independent thinker. I supported you in the past, but I like what President Trump was saying. I wasn't going to vote for it. This is my words now, not his. She who shall never be president. So I supported President Trump. Then there's another business owner. His name was Justin Herricks. He said, quote, as a country, as a whole, we've got much bigger issues than trying to fight amongst ourselves. I feel pretty good about what I've done and who I support. Everybody else is pretty open with what they believe in on the other side, so why can't I? What's the problem? Then Justin Herricks went on to say this. He said, Castro's claims about Trump supporters and Hispanics is completely wrong. Justin Herricks said, quote, probably a good 50 to 70% of my employment is Mexican people. You can't have that argument. Everyone on that list, I would be safe to say, has done way more for Hispanic people than Castro ever has thought of doing. I don't know the guy, but how many employees does he have compared to all the people on the list? Justin Herricks said, man, the majority of my employees who work for me are of Mexican descent. And one of the things I find most remarkable, and this just shows the utter ignorance, and I've shared this before. Now, Joaquin Castro and his brother, they're of Mexican-American ancestry. Their parents hail from Mexico. He refers to himself as Hispanic. Now, I've told you guys before, and I didn't know this before I married my wife, but my wife, who is Puerto Rican, explained it to me. People who come from Spanish-speaking countries don't refer to themselves as Hispanic. That is a political term invented by American politicians. And Joaquin Castro does the exact same thing. People who come from Spanish-speaking countries identify themselves based on their nation of origin. Mexican, Colombian, Guatemalan. But when they come to America, everybody's Hispanic. They are trying to create groupthink. Now, I am pointing this out, and man, I have some more to share. I don't think I'm going to get to calls today because the main reason I'm sharing this is that we need to tamp down this partisan rhetoric. We have gotten to the place where you have an elected official attempting to intimidate his own constituents. Folks, think about what's happening here. You have an elected official attempting to debo his own constituents. Now, you bet not vote like that again. Imagine, think about this. Imagine him providing the names and employers of the San Antonio residents who voted against him, so his own goons can be aware of who opposed him. Because he didn't even consider that some of the people whose names he was publishing happened to have supported him in the past. Do you see now? Are the wheels turning? This is the kind of stuff that happens in banana republics, but not in the United States of America. But we are here. We have gotten to the place. Where you have people who are attempting to intimidate their political opponents solely because of who they support politically. Now, I want to remind you in this moment where rhetoric is all of the rage and conversation. Listen to this little montage we put together. It's in clip number 5.
If we are fortunate enough to win back the House and/or the Senate, that's when civility can start again.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
Please, get up in the face of some Congress people.
What we've got to do is fight in Congress, fight in the courts, fight in the streets.
I want you to argue with them and get in their face?
Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
We need to overthrow the government of the United States under Donald Trump.
When they go low, we kick them. That's what this new Democratic Party is about.
If you had to be stuck in an elevator with either President Trump, Mike Pence, or Jeff Sessions, who would it be?
Does one of us have to come out alive?
And this is the environment that Congressman Joaquin Castro sought to publish publicly the names and the employers of 44 members of his own district. We got to tamp down this rhetoric, man. And this is a great opportunity for us who are Christ followers to be peacemakers.
Here's Walker Wildman for Redeem Clean Laundry Products.
Not only do you get a great product and you get to obviously clean your clothes, get the stains out and use a multi-surface cleaner to clean your countertops and use the dryer sheets. You're doing all of this and the money's going to support the work of American Family Association.
Redeem Clean Laundry Products were developed by AFA supporters Len Ingram and Jim Duncan to assist in funding the mission of the American Family Association. Redeem Clean products work as well as or better than other products on the market. They're environmentally safe, biodegradable, and they're made right here in the United States.
The great thing about Redeem Clean is not only is the product great, but it goes to support a great cause, and that is the work of American Family Association.
For clean laundry and a cleaner society, it's Redeem Clean. Visit redeemclean.afastore.net.
Kissing dating, wife, and Jesus goodbye. This is David Wheaton, host of the Christian Worldview. In the late 90s and 2000s, Joshua Harris became the face of the courtship movement after writing his best-selling book, I Kissed Dating Goodbye. Harris went on to marry and father 3 children and pastor a prominent church. But in recent years, after further theological schooling, Harris disavowed his popular book. But even bigger shocks came recently when he announced he is getting a divorce, followed by saying he is no longer a Christian. This is a cautionary reminder of what the Bible exhorts in 1 Timothy. Fight the good fight, keeping faith and a good conscience, which some have rejected and suffered shipwreck in regard to their faith. Hear more at thechristianworldview.org and then tune in this weekend for part 2.
Listen to The Christian Worldview with David Wheaton, Saturday mornings at 8 Central on American Family Radio.
Fox News Commentary with Todd Starnes.
Country music is swinging to the left. That story next. Todd Starnes here, and America is facing a great danger as socialism and secularism continue to grip our nation. The left is not holding back in this culture war, and neither can we. That's why Liberty University's mission of training the next generation of faith-based conservative leaders is so vital. Their students know the value of free enterprise and individual freedom, and they will fight for it. So join me in supporting the next generation of conservative leaders. Visit liberty.edu/Starnes today. There's been quite a bit of discussion over Casey Musgraves, the country music star who attacked President Trump and called for gun control. She used language that would have made Hank Williams Jr. blush. A lot of folks around Nashville are wondering what in the name of Minnie Pearl is going on with country music. It's sad to say, but Miss Musgraves is part of a new wave of liberal artists determined to change the culture and the twang of country music. Liberalism is just like kudzu. Once it takes root, you can't get rid of it. And just like kudzu, liberalism kills everything it touches. Country music fans are rock solid for the most part, especially on the Second Amendment, which is why her profane pontificating was about as popular as somebody bringing a bucket of store-bought chicken to Wednesday night church supper. So all I can say to Casey Musgraves is, ma'am, bless your heart. I'm Todd Starnes.
That's your Fox News Commentary.
The Hamilton Quarter podcast and 1-minute commentaries are available at afr.net. Back to the Hamilton Quarter on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner. Let me give you another example of where we are as a country. Well, some of you may be familiar with the President Trump versus Representative Elijah Cummings brouhaha that transpired, and And unlike many places, I attempted to give you the context because Elijah Cummings chairs a committee in the House of Representatives where he was lambasting the head of the Department of Homeland Security and really condemning, the work of Homeland Security, Border Patrol, and ICE. And so when President Trump tweeted about Elijah Cummings cleaning up his own rat-infested district, which is, by the way, the exact same vernacular that Elijah Cummings used to describe his own district in 1999, same term that Bernie Sanders used in 2016 and 2017, but everybody gets up in arms when President Trump says the exact same words. Anyway, so President Trump tweeted at Elijah Cummings. Elijah Cummings responded. But the main issue, in that there were many local residents of Baltimore who were grateful that President Trump shined the light on the travesties that are occurring in Elijah Cummings' district in Baltimore. All right? Well, I want to say this guy's name right. Scott Presler. I don't know who Scott Presler. Apparently, he is a conservative activist. However, Scott Presler organized some 170 volunteers to go to West Baltimore to work from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., removing what is reported as 12 tons of trash in West Baltimore. He said that he organized this cleanup effort not to support President Trump or as a Trump rally and not as an anti-Elijah Cummings rally. He did it because it came to his attention that fellow Americans were suffering. And he did it as an effort to show Americans helping Americans. Listen to this in clip number 1.
Good morning, everybody. This is Scott Presler. I'm now in West Baltimore. We're here because we want to help pick up trash and clean up the city. You know, this isn't just about Trump or anti-Representative Cummings or anything. This is about we want to help our fellow citizen and we want to come together as a family because we're all Americans. And I ask you to please post on social media today, #Americans Helping Americans. Thank you.
Now, I want to play this next clip to show that Presler posted these videos on Twitter saying there were volunteers that came from all over the country to help this effort to clean up this really impoverished area of West Baltimore. Listen to clip number 2.
Hey everybody, we are out here at North Fulton and Westwood in Baltimore. This is West Baltimore. And as you can see, we have volunteers all over the place. They've come from all over the country. Virginia Beach, Virginia, North Carolina. We have local Baltimore, that's right. And we're just having an amazing time. This is an act of love. This is people coming together, Americans coming to help Americans.
And following the efforts, there were local Baltimore residents who saw what was there before because they lived there. And when the cleanup day was done, they were thankful for what the volunteers did in West Baltimore. Listen to clip number 3.
I am elated. I really am. I'm really happy about it.
You told her she would be so happy.
I want to cry, but I'm not a crier, so I'm going to just keep smiling. Like, I saw you guys this morning, like, down. I was looking like, y'all are doing an awesome job.
Thank you. We're so happy to be here to help, you know.
Thank you so much. If nobody else told you, I appreciate it. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Now, what you couldn't see, obviously because we were on the radio, is that this woman is walking through a corridor that earlier that morning was overrun with trash. And literally, you couldn't even walk down that sidewalk. And then they were standing on the sidewalk having this little exchange that was posted to Twitter. Now, you would think this is great. People volunteering to come and help one another out. Americans helping Americans, cleaning up in America. cleaning up a neighborhood that, the media showed that it was run down. I played the audio on the show here that Baltimore's own former mayor was walking in this same neighborhood and said, "Woo, you could smell the rats from here." She was outside. You would think everybody would be excited about that, right? Wrong. This is where we are as a country, folks. The Baltimore Sun. I don't even know if I can get it out, but the Baltimore Sun's editorial board posted a story with the headline, quote, "We assume it was pure motives that led a Trump supporter to launch a cleanup in Cummings' district, right?" End quote. That was the headline. "We assume it was pure motives that led a Trump supporter to launch a cleanup in Cummings' district, right?" Why didn't y'all do it, Baltimore Sun? The nerve of you. Why didn't y'all get your grubby hands out there and clean it up? This is ridiculous, man. Even if you had that suspicion, you can't hold that in for a day or two? You But I'm sharing this with you to show, so you have people doing good deeds for others, that because we're so politicized in our country right now, we're so divided, that their immediate response was, they ain't doing that out of pure motives. How do you know? Did you even try to interview the guy? No. They just ran with that headline. And look what their sad, trashy little story said. Quote, "Whatever he says," talking about Scott Presler, "whatever he says his motives were, Mr. Presler's presence in Baltimore reinforces the tired image of our failing urban cores, that the poor people in this dilapidated city can't take care of their own neighborhoods, and all the public officials around them have failed as well. The bureaucratic, all-talk Democrats strike again. If a crowd of volunteers could clean up 12 tons of trash in 12 hours, how incompetent and helpless must Baltimoreans be if they can't manage it in decades, right?" End quote. Well, if the shoe fits, if it walks like a duck, and it quack like a duck, well, what is it? Somebody better get the Geico out here. This is ridiculous, man. This is ridiculous. Yes. Why wasn't it clean before? Oh my gosh. This is where we are as a country. Rather than say, man, that's awesome. Man, this is a moment where people can put their political partisanship aside, come together to clean up an area of our country that needs some help, obviously. That needs some help. And put that animus, because of the R's and D's, donkeys and elephants, on the side for one day. Maybe it don't hit you this way because I grew up in a neighborhood like this. Maybe I process it from having a mindset, man, if somebody came in my neighborhood cleaning up, how that would have impacted the people in the neighborhood. Maybe that's my error in this whole thing. But for these ivory tower Baltimore Sun Editorial Board members to sit up there and say, well, this just reinforces a tired old trope that I guess they can't clean up their own city, right? Have you ever lived in the hood? Do you know what that's like? Man, and this is what I'm talking about, being peacemakers. We have to have the fortitude to stand in the face of this and say, nah, Baltimore Sun, you guys have missed it. So what? You can say the man has ill motives. I haven't seen you out here with a broom. Haven't seen you out here with garbage trucks and garbage bags and gloves on in a mess in a part of the town that most of the elected officials in that town won't even go in, if you'd be honest. I can tell you that most of the elected officials in my neighborhood in New Orleans didn't come from my hood, didn't come visit our neighborhood. It's sad. Listen, y'all, you may not know what it's like. I'll tell you guys, this is a personal story. This is the truth. Y'all know, grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana. I remember I was playing in a basketball tournament when I was a young teenager. And this tournament was in Dallas, Texas. And after our games finished for the day, our coach took us to downtown. And I remember telling the coach, this can't be downtown. This isn't downtown. And my coach said, hey, why are you so confident this isn't downtown? And you know what I said? Now I was a little boy. I said, there's no trash. See, in my mind, all downtowns look like downtown New Orleans. Look like downtown in the French Quarter area. I had never experienced a downtown in a major city that was clean. I hadn't experienced that. That was one of my earliest exposures to seeing, man, not all cities operate the same. And it started me thinking, and I asked my dad, Daddy, why can't our downtown look like this? If this is downtown, why can't our downtown look like this? You know, why do people celebrate that they can come to our city and do things and urinate on the streets that they never could do in their own hometowns? And they come to visit and trash our downtown, then they go back to their cities and live in their normal lives. That's the kind of questions I started asking as a little boy. This is ridiculous, folks. You can't put your donkey and your elephant down for 10 seconds and just celebrate the fact that some little children can run down the street in a walkway and not have to go the long way around because the trash is finally picked up. I'm just sick of the foolishness, folks. I'm just sick of the foolishness. And that's why, and listen, these ivory tower spokesmouths are not going to do it. That's why you and I have to be the peacemakers. We have to be the ones that step and say, listen, not everybody is like that. Not everybody is like that. There are some people who are like that, but not everybody is like that. Not everybody is like that. We have to be the ones that come in and say, you know what? Man, if these strangers can come and clean up our neighborhoods, why can't we do it? And begin to start that domino effect from flowing. It just shows that when we reach the place where our political affiliations and our investments and electoral outcomes overwhelm basic things like humanity, we are in a bad space, man. We're in a bad space. This newspaper, the Baltimore Sun, said it reinforces the tired image of failing urban cores. Well, Baltimore Sun, I have a question for you. Is the urban core in your city failing? Let's have the conversation. Let's talk about it. Let's have the conversation. And if it is failing, why is it failing? Let's have the conversation instead of lamenting the efforts of volunteers. Man, this is sad. This is sad. This is sad. But that was the response of the Baltimore Sun. It reinforces the tired image that the poor people in this dilapidated city can't take care of their own neighborhoods, and all the public officials around them have failed as well. If the shoe fits, if it walks like a duck, if it makes the same sound that you hear on the Geico commercials, quack, quack. You know, I learned a long time ago, only hit dogs holler. Only hit dogs holler. Man, let's get out of this notion that there's this class of, electoral superheroes waiting to rush in to save us. Man, let's get about the business ourselves. If you happen to live in a neighborhood that this kind of stuff is happening, why don't you organize your own volunteer group to start picking up the trash in your own neighborhood? If you don't live in neighborhoods and you're aware of neighborhoods near you that need help, why don't you get people together in your neighborhood and start to make moves right where you are? That's what I'm talking about, beginning in Jerusalem and working outward from there. A major part of the problem is that a lot of us don't even get out and talk to people anymore. The entirety of our existence is in the digisphere. Man, go and meet your neighbor. Do you know your neighbor's names? I know some of us may, but some of us may not. If you don't, why don't you go and knock on your neighbor's door and introduce yourself? Hello, my name is Abraham. I live next door to you. Why don't sometime we plan, maybe let's get together and have dinner together. And what I'm telling you what'll happen is a lot of the stuff that people get from the media, and they're learning to be outraged because they didn't have none of these problems until they watched the TV or watched the internet. And a lot of the stuff that they learned to be outraged about, man, that stuff would melt like wax in the presence of interpersonal community interaction. God bless you all.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family